Welcome to the Lovers Lounge podcast, where we talk to experts and other guests on topics related to love, relationships, and sex. I am your host, Tina Love, and on this episode, I am so very excited to introduce Steve and Janet Hall. They are co-authors of the book 15 Rules for a Loving and Lasting Relationship. They have endured and flourished when others have failed. How, you might ask? Well, we are going to find out right now. Welcome, Steve and Janet, to the show.
Hello.
Yes, I'm so glad to have you guys on the Lovers Lounge.
Great
Thank
to
you
be
for
here.
having us.
Yes, well, I'll tell you, let me just say this that I thoroughly enjoyed reading your book. And I just couldn't wait to share it with the listeners today. So I'm so very, very excited to have you guys on. You two have been married for 40 years. First of all, you guys don't even look like you could have been over 40. Like you guys look very, very young. When I saw that, I thought,
Thank
they've
you.
been, yeah, like they've been married 40 years. Man, they look young. So you guys look really good. And
Well,
Thank you.
we started early, that's for
Yeah,
sure.
we
you
really
started
did.
early. Okay. Well, and so through all of those years, like people have been asking you guys about how you remain happy in your marriage and what led you to, you know, write this book. So I want to find out. So what led you guys to deciding to write the 15 rules?
Well, you know, so often we see friends who don't stay together, couples we've known don't stay together, and so often people ask us, "What is your secret?" We've been through so much. We've had a son who was injured in Iraq and nearly killed. We lost a daughter in a motorcycle accident. We've had a business fail, and yet somehow we've remained happy and together, and we managed to weather the storm.
Yeah, yeah. So I saw that and I noticed that, in your introduction to the book. So what do you think actually helped you guys keep your connection through like your son and then the loss of your daughter? Because I would imagine there are some couples that go through that and they just never recover. So what do you think the key is that has helped, keep you guys connected and weathered that?
I think having Steve, um, both me and him, it's the strength. We lean on each other. We draw strength from each other. So I think early on in our relationship, we became best friends and really talked in depth. We know each other really well. And, I gained strength from him and he gained strength from me. It's okay to be weak every now and again, and you lean on your partner. So we
Okay.
really learned how to do that. Be best friends. Draw from each other when one of us is, a little more stronger than the other one. It's okay. Lean on them.
That's
And
great.
we've done that through tragedy, but we've done it through good times.
As well as bad.
So
That's good. Yeah,
yeah,
that's great. Now, you
Yeah, we
guys,
certainly
go ahead,
go
Steve.
ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Steve.
We certainly could go through the list of things that when you're dealing through tough times, the things that you really want to be careful about. You don't want to be blaming your partner for something wrong or for an issue that came about. Certainly, we talk about being best friends. I mean, that's absolutely important to a relationship. Is if you're going to spend so much time with someone, you've got to learn to be best friends with them.
Right, right. And
yeah, have to like them.
yeah, and I want to touch on that even more. But before we do, you guys in your book, you share some pretty interesting statistics about marriages ending and divorce. So, can you kind of share some of those statistics? I think I read something like maybe 40 something percent of marriages end in divorce, maybe, or am I right or wrong? Or what are some of
I,
those
I think
statistics? Yeah.
I think it was right around 50% worldwide end in divorce.
Yeah.
It's a staggering amount. It's one out of every two somewhere along the line. But many of those end early, and I think a lot of people just don't understand about the commitment you're making. And we talk in the book about the fact that although Janet jokes about it, she says she has a piece of paper that says she owns me, the marriage license. it isn't an owning thing. It's about two people sharing time together,
Yeah.
and allowing each other to be who they are.
Yes.
Hmm.
Okay, good, good. I'm glad you said that because there are some misconceptions, especially I think I just did an interview not long ago with a millennial, and I think there may be some misconceptions with millennials and thinking that it says that you own this person, or marriage says
Hmm.
that or whatnot, and so it might be kind of misunderstood. And so I'm glad that you mentioned that, and I'm sure we're going to talk more about it. But before we move into that, you mentioned being best friends, and I want to talk more about this. So I know that in your book, there were people, as you explained, that your best friends, they're like, no, they didn't think that was a good idea, or how can you be best friends with your spouse? Or so what do you say to those folks who just can't really wrap their heads around being best friends with your spouse?
The story in the book is Steve with his friends at work.
Right.
I also have friends who just they don't like to spend time with their spouse. They'll go with their friends to the movies and shopping and all kinds of things. But when I say, what do you guys do together? What are your hobbies as a couple? They don't have a hobby as a couple. And, Steve has his interests, I have mine, but we have interests together. I would say that if you want to really be happy, I mean, you can be married, you can be a martyr and stay married forever, but to be happily married and to really like the person you are with, you got to do something together and have fun together. So,
Yeah.
we ski, we do a lot together. We hike, that's in the book too.
She took me hiking a couple weeks ago. I can tell you, I wasn't really thrilled about going, but it was a tough climb too.
I bet.
But
Yes.
but if we did it, we laughed,
Yeah.
and I kept thinking, well, I'll get some exercise here. I can't.
At least you'll
But
get that. Huh? Yeah.
she wanted to do it, and it's about understanding that you sacrifice a little bit, but I hate to call it sacrifice. I had fun doing it. I had to suck it up and go,
Yeah.
and I had fun doing it.
That's great.
But
That's great.
it's doing that something together. So I think being best friends is so important. To be happy. You don't want to go through life saying, "Oh, I was married to this person, but I didn't really like them."
Yeah.
Couldn't imagine that.
Right, 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 right. And something else you say that's really important in your book is to ask yourself two questions. So here are the two questions. You say, whether you're in a committed relationship or a serious relationship or not, the two questions are, do I truly like this person? Not love, but do I like them? And then the next thing is to ask, uh, do you truly love this person? Not like, but truly love the person. Why do you think these two questions are really, really important?
I think so many people get confused. You talk about millennials, for example.
Mm-hmm.
And we see so much on TV about love, lust, and or love and lust, basically. And we talk about there's three different things, and I think that people confuse the three, or we think that people confuse the three.
Yeah.
And you've got to learn, lust will go away, love goes away. You've got to really like being with the person you're with, and then we go back to being best friends. And so, how do you get to like that person? Do you really like that person? And that's where I think if you get into a relationship, you've got to have a lot of very good communication, because you got to get to really know who that person is. And on the flip side, you've got to be who you really are and make sure that your new partner, knows who you really are and what your hopes, dreams, and desires are, and make sure they share the same values.
Right, right, right. It was good. I like the fact that in your book you talked about being likable, lovable, and lustable. Can
Hmm.
can you share a little bit about why this is an important concept? Being likable, lovable, and lustable.
Well, it is. I mean, sex is a really big part of a relationship. You have to have all three, and you know, just to have a healthy relationship, you have to have all three. Um, Over the years, we always liked each other. we love each other, and we loved each other. And I think, your kids grow up and leave, and it's you two again. So it's, you start off just a couple and you end just a couple, really.
But it comes down to being likable, lovable, and when we go through the 15 rules, there's things that you do. You learn to listen to your partner. Make sure you've heard what their hopes, dreams, and desires are, and what you're doing that is annoying. And I talk a lot about how my quirky friend here, and how I do some things that I think are a little quirky. She would agree. She would tell you the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
But you just do it because it's your friend, and you do it for your friend.
Yes.
The example I use is rinsing the dishes before they go into the dishwasher. But I mean, also, compliment. One of the things we hear from people so often is one of the big things they get from the book, if they take away nothing else, is to learn to compliment your partner. And so often there's so many opportunities to do that,
Mm-hmm.
but people forget that.
Right. And we shouldn't, because we need to. I mean, your spouse or your partner needs to know that you still think that they're hot and they're sexy and whatever it is. So,
Exactly.
it just adds something to the relationship and just kind of makes you feel good. And so it's great to be able to say, "Hey, sexy chocolate man, I'm loving you," or something.
Right.
And so bring a smile to their face, or "Hey, beautiful," whatever. So yes,
Yeah, yeah.
sounds good. Sounds
Or
good.
just thank you for taking the trash out today. I really
Absolutely.
appreciate it.
Yes.
Or any of that stuff. I think we so often we have that chance where we miss that opportunity. And I think it goes a long ways in a friendship and a relationship.
Yep, absolutely. I love the quote that you share in your book. Now, I may not be able to say this guy's name right, so maybe you can help me. By 19th century German philosopher Friedrich, is it Nietzsche?
Nietzsche, I believe it is.
Okay. It's not a lack of love, but a lack of friendship that makes unhappy marriages. I thought that was interesting. Not a lack of love, but a lack of friendship. And that's why you guys are such good friends, and you really, I think, weigh very heavily on being very good friends is because of that quote. Would you say that's correct?
Absolutely. Yeah, we started off, we were both 15, he was almost 16 when we met, and we became instant friends. We would sit and talk for hours. We became friends, and I think that we were friends first.
Yeah, and I think we stumbled on the
We
key.
stumbled onto everything kind of fell into place after that.
Yeah, yeah. You guys, you make time for each other. You take time to talk. You take time to laugh and share experiences with each other and all of that, huh?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
In our relationship, we joke around. We'll come home from work and cook dinner together and laugh. Tell about our day and just laugh.
Yeah.
And that's the fun stuff. That's being friends and
Yes.
loving spending time together.
Yeah. Very important. And
Hmm.
something else that you say is very important is to be all in. And this is interesting because oftentimes you hear people say, well, our relationship is 50-50 commitment. And you suggest, however, that, that's incorrect, that we ought to actually be 100 and 100% commitment from each person. Can you elaborate on that and why?
It has to be. You've got to be totally committed to your relationship. It's absolutely imperative that you focus all your efforts on your relationship. And it doesn't mean that you give up everything. You can't, because when you do that, you're not living the life that you want to. But it's all about being all in. It's also about letting your partner be who they want to be. Let them do what they want to do, and be themselves. That's absolutely so. It's be yourself. Let your partner be themselves.
Be supportive. You're supposed to be that person who's supporting them and they support you.
Yes.
And it's 100% commitment.
Yes. And it can't be, I think it's interesting too how you guys put it in the book. It can't be one person putting in 100 and the other person not. It'll never work that way. You guys say that it's just very important that it needs to be balanced, that each person needs to be, put being willing and able anyway to put 100%
Right.
in. Yeah.
Yeah, we say
Yeah.
it's really important. What we also say is we hate to see anyone in a relationship that's abusive.
Yeah. We would never, say that you have to stay together for that.
Right.
Yeah. But definitely if, you have somebody who is not 100% in, or, you're giving your all and they're not, that's when we say, okay, either you give them the book and have them read it so they're 100% in, or find somebody else.
Yes.
We
Yeah.
we would stress giving them the book first.
That's right. Absolutely. And Steve, you just mentioned something too that made me think about. You talked about not trying to change somebody. You know, accepting them for who they are, and I think that's something that I don't know when I in doing this show and I talk to many relationship experts, and I think that comes up a lot is that people enter relationships thinking that maybe perhaps they can change this other person and not really accepting them for who they are. So what do you say about that, Steve?
Well, first of all, if you love that person, you have to love them for who they are and what they love to do. I have always been a motorcycle guy,
Mm-hmm.
and there's the joke: if you want kids not to do drugs, get them in the motorcycles. They'll never have enough money for drugs. But it's the same way here. But Janet's always been all in with that's okay because that's who I am and that's what she loves. We talk about rule number 15, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That how important that is it's a God-given, inalienable right. Where if you like and love someone, how can you possibly want to change them and take that away from them and take away their dreams? And so it's not love if you're wanting to change them, I think.
Right, exactly. It's not unconditional, just letting someone be who they are. Exactly. Yeah. And you also mentioned two sets of words that you find are very, very important within a marriage or relationship. You say the one is, I love you, and the other is, I am sorry. So, why are these two phrases so very important? I love you and I am sorry.
I think you have to always acknowledge that you love the person and let them know that you are still in love with them. And it's okay to say you're sorry. I mean, we do things, I'm not thinking. You say something inadvertent and you say you're sorry. You talk about whatever you did wrong or whatever happened. You hash it out. You discuss it. You let it go, and you don't bring it up again.
I think that's the key.
It's done. You talked it over. You learned from it. You move on. But you have to, if I'm wrong, I'll say I'm wrong. I'm sorry.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the other key is you don't have to win an argument.
Yeah.
That even if you're right, what is the value? If you're gonna win the battle but lose the war, or lose the relationship, it's not worth it. So you've got to bite your tongue sometimes.
Yep.
And look at it.
Yeah.
And I think so often people forget that too.
Right. You do talk about the art of arguing, and it's interesting. You share a story in your book about Steve. I think you spotted some snakes or something, and Janet didn't know about it. I think you made the mistake of mentioning it to a little person that you thought maybe would just keep it to herself, but it turns out
our
she
granddaughter.
did. Yeah. And so Janet found out about it. And so tell a little bit about after Janet found out about it, what all happened with that, and how'd you kind of resolve that disagreement and move on?
Once I learned about the snakes, because I'm so afraid of them, I called Steve and said, I heard that there's a snake in our house. How did that happen? Because you were supposed to get rid of those snakes, right?
Let me be clear, she wasn't that calm.
I bet, yes.
And I said, it better not be, like show up in my bedroom or something. Because I actually couldn't sleep days after that, thinking that this thing's in my room with me.
It was a little
Um,
garter. It wasn't. Yeah, it was a harmless. Yeah, a little harmless little garter snake. But
Yeah.
but once we, we just started talking it over, and we, came up with a plan to get rid of the
well,
snake.
we came up with her plan to get rid of it.
So you were able to compromise and resolve the disagreement. I think there was another disagreement that made me chuckle. It was about the cat. The cat refusing to eat the food. And
Yeah.
I think it was your dad, Steve, that was like, "What are you gonna do about this? You're gonna make you just let her just keep buying this
Oh,
cat
yeah.
food." The cat didn't want, and you were able to kind of diffuse that and move on. Can you tell a little bit on that story too? I thought
Yeah.
that
Well,
was
I
good.
think again, it was an example. Someone had been married. I love my dad, but he was married and divorced a couple times. He finally said he would never marry again because he couldn't. He wasn't good at it. But we use those examples, and they're really small examples. But we thought using those examples gave a real world feel about what we're talking about when we're talking about different behaviors. And that was an example where certainly it would have been easier to get other cat food, but Janet, in a time where we didn't have much money, bought some cat food the cat wasn't thrilled about, and he wanted me to put my foot down, and I should scold Janet, and I should make her held accountable for buying
Starving
the
our
wrong,
cat.
starving the cat.
Yeah.
You've got to put things in perspective, and what we said was, and what I told him was, if we made food for the kids and you put a good effort in, and the kids didn't want to eat, you let them go hungry. They'll figure it out eventually. And that darn cat didn't figure it out.
No.
But,
We went and bought the cat food.
Yes, I know. The little cat, she was a
yeah,
little stubborn. She's like, "Nope, I'm not eating that. I'm just gonna hold on."
yes.
Want to go.
But it was really about putting things in perspective and understanding that you don't want to be destroying your relationship over the little things, over things that really aren't important. Certainly, we didn't want to see the cat starve to death, and we
Yes.
figured it out rather quickly.
Yeah. It made me really think about the couples across the country that maybe do have in-laws staying with them, mother-in-law or, whatever, and how, a lot of times in-laws can kind of get in the middle of relationships and really kind of tear them apart, really, if you're not careful. And so, but I mean, I'm not saying that that's what your dad was trying to do, but sometimes though it can kind of put a wedge between couples. And but you guys handled it very well. You were able to really still stick together as a team and not let it like put a wedge between you.
Yeah, and it's going to depend on how strong your relationship is to begin with, and the communication you have, and being able to talk this over. My dad lived with us for a long time.
Yep.
Wow. Yeah. And I like the fact that in your book you go over, you share some points about disagreements and what to remember in a disagreement. And I can remember being married, and when I saw some of these points, it made me think about some things and gave me some flashbacks. But some things you said was, look at the big picture. Remember that we're on the same team. I think so often, we get to a point sometimes in marriage where we're like, for whatever reason, we feel like we're on opposite sides of the fence or something, but we're on the same team. And
Right.
I thought that was just very important too, that you guys wrote and said to remember that we are best friends. You talked about compliments and not to forget to smile and to laugh and to forgive and forget. And another one that I thought was good was practicing humility. So, which of those do you think is just really like the top two that you think is just very, very important out of those that I just mentioned? Look at the big picture. We're on the same team. We're best
Yeah.
friends.
Well, I think
Compliments. Yeah.
complimenting is one of the big ones, and I think it's one of the easiest ones to start with
Mm-hmm.
when you're looking at the 15 rules. It's really easy to say something negative, and if that's kind of where you are in your relationship, just saying one nice thing where somebody is expecting a negative and you say something nice, you're going to turn that whole situation around, and that person's going to look at you differently.
Yeah.
So, and it could be anything, but, instead of being annoyed, you know, say, say something nice.
Yeah.
And, it is one of the easiest, I think.
Okay.
I think along those lines, and one of the more difficult, but along the same lines, is overcome jealousy. Like when you're talking about the being on the same team,
Yes.
and we go into that. There's different. You guys, the obvious jealousy that someone's paying attention to your partner,
Right.
but you get the jealousy of one partner making more money than the other, one more successful than the other, and if you're on the same team, you use that as an opportunity to better the team and understand that. Right now, Janet's making more money than me. Am I thrilled about that? No, but we work it out, and hopefully I get to make more than her very soon. But
Yeah.
that that's and then when you look at someone looking at your partner, spending some gawking at them or flirting with them, I always try to look at it. And of course, in the book I talk about times when I was much younger where it would bother me, but I learned to understand that, hey, she chooses to spend time with me when she's popular with everybody, which is a good thing, which is great. And I think people I should learn to understand that and learn to not get angry over it. Like I tease her, hey, so I still got it. And I remember I was much older, getting hit on, and she was teasing me about it. Like,
Right.
hey, still got it.
You still got it.
Yeah. This makes me think of a couple of things. Going back to the competition sort of thing, and then I want to talk about that jealousy thing you were just saying. But it's interesting because I was just looking at a Netflix movie the other night. It's called Self Made, and it's about Madam C.J. Walker, a lady who African American woman who. Um, she invented the pressing comb for African American women, and it just kind of told her story. But it
Right.
showed in the movie how, as she began to get more and more successful, like all of a sudden it turned into a competition between her husband and her. And I mean, she was not at
Right.
all in competition with him. But as she began to get more and more popular and, more success and more money, it was almost as though people were sort of trying to pit them against each other and make it out of
Right.
a competition. It's like, no, we're on the same team. And I was just saying, like, I don't know why that tends to happen, but it shouldn't. But it so
It does.
often does. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And so, Steve, too, how do you like if an opportunity arises and somebody's like coming on to you, so to speak, Steve? How do you get out of this when there's an opportunity and some woman's trying to hit on you and get with you? Like, how do you get out of this where it's not like you're not tempted to fall into this mess, into that?
Well, I've got to go way back in my memory now. It's been a long time,
how,
but
how do you remain trustworthy when an opportunity creeps up that offers a
when it
temptation?
used to creep on.
Yeah, yeah,
No, again, you got to think about the big picture and what is this really worth it? I think that's the being all. Are you all in? Is it really worth it? And I understanding and being your best friends. When you're best friends with somebody, you wouldn't want to hurt that person. And I think that's the whole key.
Right.
Is having and it's funny because you do that, and I really consider myself a nice guy. And
hmm
so you really try to break it to that person gently. I'm so sorry. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. However, and then you move on. So you've got to be. I try to be kind with that person too.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly,
Or
exactly. I like the fact that you said in your book, you got to be more concerned about the pain of regret and how that will feel over the good time that you could have at the time of the temptation. I mean, I
exactly. Yeah.
really
Exactly.
thought that
Yep.
was really good. I was like snapping my fingers when I wrote that. When I saw that, I was like, yes, yes, yes. I mean, because at the end of the day, I mean, you could satisfy yourself with this for this little time that this opportunity presents itself. But I tend to think more about what happens if the person finds out and how bad will I feel. And that, at that point, you're like, oh no, this is not worth it. No, 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 no. But I don't
Yeah,
know.
exactly.
Right.
Yeah, unfortunately though, there are some people that just don't tend to take that time to think about, that regret feeling, and they go ahead and they go with the opportunity at the time and the pleasure, but not thinking about what it's going to feel like on the other side of this if this, comes out. So I really like the fact that you mentioned that in the
Exactly.
book.
Or even just dealing with the guilt. I mean,
Yeah.
I would think that
Yes.
if you're a kind, gentle, nice person, you're going to end up with a lot of guilt from a situation like that, where the pain of regret.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah. I thought it was really good too in your book. You mentioned how important it is to um, be yourself versus being selfish. So, what did you mean by this? How important it is to be yourself versus being selfish?
When we talk about being yourself, it really is, what is your personality? What do you like to do?
Hmm.
If you are trying to be somebody you're not, that might work for a little while, but eventually the real you's going to come out. So if you're faking who you are and then you get married and you think you're going to spend a lot of years together being that fake person, it's not going to work. Who you really are is going to come out at some point. So you really do have to just say, "This is me. I hope you like it."
Yes.
This is what you're marrying,
Right, right, right.
so that you never have to, say, you know, um, why did I marry you? I think in the book we talk about, an acquaintance we have who her husband
Yep.
was boring, um, and you should know, who was different at the time. What were you looking for in that relationship?
Who is lying? Was he
Yeah,
really
who was
boring
lying?
to begin with,
Yes.
or
Yes. 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 Yes.
I
Yes.
think it's you have to be yourself.
I rem-
Absolutely.
yeah, I remember that because I think the person also ended up divorcing the person because, say, for instance, they worked too much or whatever it was, but
yeah,
they'd
yeah,
been that way all the time. It's just in the very beginning when they were dating, maybe she was more, lenient about it or, more open, flexible. But then once they got married and really got into the marriage, and the person was still being who they were at the very beginning. It's just that maybe in the beginning she wasn't really sharing how she really felt about it, and she was being a little bit more flexible. And then down the line, it came out how she really felt about him working
Yeah.
a lot, and then
yeah. Or she thought she was going to change him.
thought she was going to change him. There it is. There it is once
If
again.
you're, yep. So if you're, somebody who's an outgoing person, that's who you are. Don't try to be stoic all the time because somebody likes that. Don't try to be something that somebody likes. Be yourself.
That's right. It's the best thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the fact that you also share how important it is, the concept of a give, take relationship. Can you explain this? Like, what did you mean by that? Give, take.
Well, I think you've got to. I'm trying to remember the examples we have in the book. You probably remember it more than us, Tina.
I just read it.
You're,
Yeah.
you've got some really good questions here.
That's
Give. It's more, instead of a give take relationship.
yes.
We look at it as more of a relationship where you're benefiting each other.
Right.
Yeah.
And I
It's
think,
not
yeah.
like I'm doing a lot and the other person's receiving. We're doing for each other.
Right.
So it's a give.
Give.
Yeah, and
So at the end of the
yeah,
day, it's more balanced. It's
Yeah.
give, and then you should also be at the same level, take in a relationship at the same time.
hmm
All right. Okay, great.
And that's where when you lean on, somebody might be stronger at one point, and then that's when you get to take. You get to get that comfort and be be on
Right.
the receiving end.
Absolutely. Yeah.
and we talk about, for example, the loss of our daughter and how difficult that was. But I'm sure any really bad situation someone's in, we learn to when one was strong, the other one was weak, and vice versa. And how we saw it as extremely important to just suck it up, to where either one of us could have just gone into a deep depression. It would have been very easy to do that. And yet because we loved each other, because we liked each other, we decided that we needed to just be strong for each other.
Great.
Yeah.
And in those tough moments, that's where the give and take come along, where we just we're there for each other.
Mhm.
Okay.
And also not losing it for each
Right.
other as well. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Sounds real good. Um, so there was one other part that I really, really liked. Now you guys can tell I really got into this book, right? So I'm really digging all through here.
Good.
But I hope that everybody listening can understand this is a really good book. And I mean, it's good for couples who are married, such as yourselves, Janet and Steve, but at the same time, couples who are contemplating marriage. Maybe they want to get married,
Oh, absolutely.
or maybe
Yep.
they've been married like me and it ended up in divorce, or maybe they're widowed and they're thinking of doing this again and they're needing to learn some things before entering into a marriage. So I just think all the way around, and a committed relationship. It's just good to have. It's a very good book to have and to read. Um, because your chapter on blaming and how this tends to happen. I thought that was really good. Can you share a little bit about that? You know, how we tend to, maybe if you're in an argument or something happens, how we tend to turn around and want to blame each other. And with phrases like, well, you always, and well, I told you so, and you never, those kind of things. Can you talk about that a little bit, guys?
Sure. Sure. You want me to jump in?
Mhm.
So we find that so often it may come up that a couple brings up old issues. We've done it in the past as well, where you bring up old issues. What you've got to learn to do is settle things in the moment, get over them. Go back to the snake story, where she doesn't bring up the snake story again, and yeah, I screwed up. I admit it. I was wrong. I'm wrong about snake behavior and all that kind of stuff. But not bringing up the past. We've each had our errors, and just learning that there's no benefit. And first of all, there's no benefit in rehashing the past. The
Mm-hmm.
past is over. It's done with. So when you're blaming, it's really about moving forward, not blaming, but finding out the error that was made and how do we move forward. What do we do? What do we do wrong? What are we going to move forward? It's as leaders in healthcare, it's one of the things where I know I've had employees come to me and admit something's wrong. It's like, okay, well, so what's the plan? Well, never going to do that. I'm never going to do that again because I'm going to do this instead. All right. Well, then you don't bring it up again, right? You don't blame.
Yeah, it's the finger pointing and the you always. If something happens in the past, you hash it out, you let it go,
Right.
and the finger pointing stuff and the you
It's
I
it's
can't trust
toxic. Yeah.
you. Yeah,
Yeah. It's
it
toxic.
really.
Yeah, it can be
And
toxic.
and that's we go back to your personality and being who you are.
Yeah.
You either like the person or you don't. So the you always are in a negative tone is never a good thing.
Yeah. I guess, for me, I kind of, while you were talking about it and saying you always and you never and all that, it kind of makes me think about, anyway, a scripture in Corinthians in the Bible where it talks about what love is. And
Yeah.
one part of it says that love doesn't keep record of wrongs. And it's interesting, as you
Yeah.
were saying that, I guess that's why that's written in there, is because if we're continually bringing up you always, that means we're keeping a record of the wrongs. We're not letting it
Right.
go.
Right.
We're continuing to bring it up. And so that
Sure.
of course, yeah, causes a problem in the relationship or the marriage. Yeah.
Right. And on the other hand, we need to learn from our mistakes as well. So you hopefully, to being a loving partner, a loving friend, you've got to learn to learn from your mistakes and try not to repeat them, and try to learn what annoys your partner. And for the most part, with the exception of the piles and
He does good. He does a good job.
certain things I still need work on, but I truly do my best to try to avoid it. And I'm sure you do the same, Jan. Things that annoy your partner.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's what it's all about. I mean, it just continually, trying to get better and to do better. And obviously, you guys have done a great job. You've been together for 40 years. You still have a great marriage. You guys look wonderful. And so, hey, you're doing good. And you've got the book 15 Rules. So, how in the world can listeners, obtain your book? How can they hear more from you? Do you guys have like a social media page or pages? Tell us about it.
Well, we're on Facebook. It's 15 Rules, and then it's 15 Rules. The website is 15rules.com, 15rules.com. Our book is available at most major retailers. The ebook's available to pretty much all of them. And, of course, you can get the book on Amazon. It's called 15 Rules for a Loving, Lasting, and Satisfying Relationship. Certainly it's a read. We've got nothing but 5-star reviews. Tina, obviously, you love it, which is great to hear.
Yes.
And it is a book for pretty much everybody, but certainly for the new couple, certainly somebody that's contemplating marriage. But we hear from people who have been married for 40 years that have read it and said, "My word, I'm changing. I'm changing this because."
Yep, exactly. I mean, it's timeless. I mean, you can still learn something because obviously, I mean, we're not perfect, right? We make mistakes along the way, and it's always we should be developing all the time and learning all the time. And so this is just, reading your book just gives an opportunity to do that and sharpen up, do better, right?
Yep, and it's a good, easy read too. So for everybody out there who's afraid to read one, it's only 88 pages. It has just the facts, man. Right?
Yep.
I loved it. Well, thank you all so much, Steve and Janet, for coming on the show. Really, really enjoyed you, and I hope to have you back maybe sometime.
Oh, we would love that. Thank you for having us.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, listeners, I hope that you guys have enjoyed this episode of the Lovers Lounge podcast, where we talk to experts and other guests on topics related to love, relationships, and sex. So this is what I want you to do. So when you listen to these episodes, you'll need to like, you'll need to write a comment, and you'll need to subscribe. That way you can keep me around a little while, okay? I am your host, Tina Love, and until next time, peace, and of course, don't you forget, love.